Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lacsina and Mr. Alvarez. The floor now is open for questions. Kindly identify yourself and your affiliation, and to whom are you addressing the question? Yes, Dr. Jelly?
Magandang tanghali po sa lahat. I'm Jelly Galang from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. I have a question for Dr. Lacsina. This is actually beyond the topic that you presented, but I'm just curious. Was the lush boat-making technology also used in the construction of galleons? Was it transferred when the Spaniards came? Because the Filipinos were also the ones who built the galleon, so was it transferred from the pre-colonial period up to the Spanish colonial?
No, the evidence suggests that although local boat builders were used to construct the galleons, they made use of European shipbuilding techniques. Yes, it's quite different. So the main difference is the use of nails. So I didn't say it specifically, but the lashed lug boats did not make use of metal fastenings. They used metal tools to carve their boats and to drill their holes, but the fastenings of the boats themselves use only wooden and fiber materials.
Dagdag lang siguro for the galleon, it's usually the frame first before the shell. Unlike the lashed lug, it would be shell first before frame.
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions? Yes po at the back. Kayo na, sir. Yes.
Hello, good morning. Dennis Coronel from Ateneo de Davao. I have always been fascinated by the Butuan Boats. Someone coming from Mindanao. I would like to know, what is your reading of the findings of your study in terms of can these boats and the archaeological studies you did tell us about what happened to Butuan? As we all know, Butuan is a major trading port, pre-Spanish, but I don't know if this is an overextension of your study, but the social narrative associated with these boats, can your study shed light on how did this ICH die, for example? How did it thrive? Did the technology, was the technology in this traditional boat making able to really integrate itself with the local communities in Butuan? And what can we learn from the boats, archaeological finding of these boats about the death of Butuan as a major trading route?
Thank you for your question, sir. The answers might be a bit beyond my studies. If we're going into the rise and fall of Butuan as a center, so as the boats were dated to as late as the 10th century, and if we remember from historical texts that Butuan began to rise, Dr. Bolunia, in the 9th century. After the 10th century, it's hard to make the association, but what we can say, because the lashed lug boat building is definitely a shared cultural tradition from Southeast Asia, and we see many examples of this. They number more than 20 actually in the region. This would be an indication of the shared material culture. But if we were to speak more about the rise of the center of Butuan, it might be a bit difficult, and I wouldn't want to speak about that. Maybe Dr. Bolunia also studied Butuan.
In relation to the question of the gentleman from Davao, what I did and Dr. Lacsina did was to try to divide the work in Butuan, or the study of the Butuan boats and Butuan in prehistory. So mine is more on how Butuan became a center, but that would be in another conference. But we have publications already that would discuss Butuan in the 10th century and earlier, and then why it was not possible, why Butuan eventually died as a maritime trading center, because you also have Sulu, Hulo area, so things like that, and then the political and social dynamics of the area during that time. Sir, mamaya na lang po yun. Yes po.
I am Val Coronia from the Agustin del Norte, Butuan. My question would be is, if it was included in your study, ma'am, regarding on the Butuan Boats or the Lahing Boats, kailan po ba masasabi niyo na usable na po or pwede na po i-discard ang Lahing Boats, or how long do they last before they are unusable? Kasi plant-based po sila, di ba? Was that included in your study as well?
Unfortunately, no. That would be difficult to judge based on the archaeological evidence. We might have to refer to ethnographic data on that. Maybe several decades, as long as several decades. But plant-built boats, they are easily repaired, and there were historical accounts of repairing rotted wood, just easily replacing them like a piece of a puzzle. That might explain also the differences in the uses, the different timbers that were used in these boats.
Yes, Dr. Yvette?
Yvette Camacho from the University of Asia Pacific. This is for Mr. Alvarez. Just wondering about the weavers themselves. You said that weaving was mainly a female task. But given the importance of textiles, you can see that there are, shall we say, different qualities of textiles. I was wondering if sorry, I have not been to the exhibit lately, but is there space given to the status of those weavers in their communities? And also, because I'm thinking, for example, with regard to, the indigenous communities, or shall we say, we want to call them pre-Hispanic societies, there's a lot of emphasis on the role of the Babaylan, but we haven't gotten yet into the weavers, the role or the status of weavers in the community, since they were also, shall we say, keepers and even custodians and who handed on community lore, community knowledge.
Definitely na-discuss naman po sa exhibition yung role ng women as weavers. Kung may time po kayo, puntahan niyo po yung Hibla ng Lahing Pilipino gallery. And also, may mga recognized weaver po ang NCCA na mga Gamaba awardees na sila yung mga master weavers. So, at meron din po kaming gallery na nakaalat para dun sa mga Gamaba awardees.
And do you also think like a Southeast Asian perspective, because this is also shared culture, material culture in Southeast Asia?
Sa ngayon po, actually dati nag-invite din kami ng weavers from Laos, I think. So it's a good start na rin po. And then yung traveling exhibition has been to Singapore, in around Asia na rin po, Japan, and hopefully Vietnam next year. So I think magandang simula po yun.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Meron pa po ba? Okay, we'll have Dr. Grace and then the gentleman at the back.
morning. My question is for Dr. Lacsina. I'm just wondering if the last boats would have been strong enough to cross the Pacific. Now, because you talked about shared material culture in Southeast Asia, but I'm just wondering, thinking out loud, if we share that same boat building tradition with the Pacific Islands, whose people are known to have been also seafarers. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, ma'am. There are evidence of flash flood boats in the Pacific, specifically the the Solomon Islands. So that was documented in the early 1900s. So yes, at least the idea crossed into the Pacific, and to conjecture about it, I don't see why it would have been able to cross physically also into the Pacific. So just to extend that idea, we also find similar lash lug boats in Taiwan, southern Taiwan, and as far as the Maldives, actually, which might also show an Austronesian connection, because if you're familiar with the Austronesian movements, the speakers of Austronesian language actually extended into Madagascar. So the Southeast Asian boat building tradition may have made a stop in the Maldives as well.
Okay, sir.
Good morning. I'm Ed Reyes from Makati. This question is first for Dr. Lacsina on boat building. Ma'am, I'm not sure if I did not catch the part if you have mentioned on the dimension or measurements of the boats, because if so, then perhaps it could give us an idea as to the capacity of the boat and the activity. For example, are these Butuan boats limited only to fishing activities? Or if it could accommodate many people, just like a Caracoa, which is, I think, a larger in scale, and it could transport warriors, the Caracoa, I'm referring to Caracoa, then that's it. So about first the dimension or the measurement and the activities that usually is associated with the Butuan boats. And the other question is for our presenter on our clothing tradition. Do we share the same design with our neighboring Southeast Asian countries? Thank you.
So first to answer about the dimensions of the Butuan boats, these are not intact remains, but what do remain are between 9 to 12 meters in length. So we can assume that they were no longer than 15 meters when they were intact. Unfortunately, to be able to tell their function, since these are incomplete examples, it's hard to say. But lash dug boats in Southeast Asia, this construction is used for different forms and different sizes. So they would have been used across different functions of boats as well. So that's as much as I can say.
Yes po, we share the same designs with our neighbors. Not only designs po, pati na rin yung mga techniques, like yung gaya techniques, yung ikat technique, and different processes ng paghahabi. Medyo ngayon lang po mas advanced na yung mga ginagamit nilang mga equipments, unlike sa atin na minsan meron pa rin mga mano-mano.